Thanks for joining us for a virtual peek into what's happening at Eve Cidery during the 2020 harvest. I'm Autumn.
And I'm Ezra, and this video was produced by our daughter, Layla.
We've been growing apples and making cider with them for the past 18 years and are privileged and deeply grateful to live on this beautiful and unique spot on Earth. We farm two hillside orchards at the intersection of the northern Appalachian Plateau and the southern Finger Lakes. Our orchards are holistically managed with the goal of growing cider apples, not fresh eating apples, in a way that is harmonious with nature and where we try to give back as much as we take. Our farm is certified organic.
The harvest is the culmination of 9 months of hard work, high pressure decision making, and good and bad luck with the weather. And beyond that, it's the result of years and years of planning, planting, laboring, training baby trees, practicing thoughtful horticulture, and overcoming, to various degrees, many setbacks and failures.
During harvest, the hard work that defines the agricultural profession ramps up to a whole new level. There are just 2 months to get all the apples picked, hulled, pressed, and fermenting before winter sets in. The day that heavy freeze arrives, it's over. So we act like crazy squirrels, frantically gathering the bounty before it's too late.
Harvest is a revealing of vintage, the plumage, if you will, the character of the growing season. This particular growing season, 2020, has been largely defined by lots of sun and very little water. It is also an off year for both the biennial wild fruit and in our organically managed Albee Hill orchard, but not for our Newfield orchard. Overall, the quality of the fruit that has been coming in is very high. High bricks, which is the sugar content, and high acid. Lower than normal juice yields. Small fruit, but that's to be expected in a drought year.
So there's this excitement to the harvest, the revealing, the gratification of realizing the results of your hard work. And there's also the planning and execution of your vision. I don't know what squirrels do. I don't know them well enough. To me, it looks like they're running around willy nilly, stuffing themselves in hollow trees with random piles of nuts. But there's probably an elaborate method to their madness. I don't know. I think harvest is like one of those things where if you know, you know. On the outside, we probably look like distracted, unreliable, stressed out, unavailable, crazy people. On the inside, harvest is anticipated, worried about, prepared for, planned out, and ultimately executed.
We do all the picking ourselves here at Eve Cidery. There's a real art to picking, and I think sometimes that's lost in a culture that looks at picking as a chore to be done with commodified labor or even machines. We're not above hard labor. Being a fast picker is a badge of honor. Being fast requires skills. Picking multiple apples in one hand, not ripping spurs, which contain next year's fruit buds, off at the apple. Picking at the right time, and knowing the variety. Do we pick this off the tree? Do we shake and drop? Do we make multiple pickings of drops? So there's figuring out when to pick, then getting it picked efficiently, and then getting it back to the cidery. Because one of our two orchards are on a steep cliff perched above the cidery, and the other orchard is 9 miles away and a half a mile from the road. This year it's been pretty easy, but when it's raining and muddy, that's a whole other challenge. Picking in the rain, getting equipment stuck.
Anyway, so many logistics, but because there's so much setup and cleaning and breakdown involved with our press, we try to compress our pressings into 4 or 5 for the season. Some last for several days. We need to be thinking about how to coordinate picking with pressing, how long certain apples can sweat, which are going into a field blend, which is a pressing of several varieties harvested together and pressed together, what tanks and barrels of various sizes are available, and so on. To make this go smoothly in real time takes planning. Crop estimates play into this, and the inspiration for future ciders and experience from past harvests. It's a complicated dance.
The apples that have been picked and are waiting to be pressed congregate in the barn and go through a process of ripening off the tree called sweating. During this time, more starch converts to sugar and aromas develop. On press day, the idea is to have all the apples ready and waiting, the tanks washed and ready for filling, and the press sanitized and ready to grind. This is an old fashioned rack and cloth press made by Owesco, a small family owned company in Massachusetts. It's a pretty simple, elegant design that requires more work and more cleanup than the continuous feed modern presses, but we love the juice quality. And while we've had this press from the beginning, and we sort of love it like a family member.
How pressing works? The apples go up the elevator and fall into the grinder, which turns them into a pulp called pumice. The pumice fills the hopper and is pumped out through the hose. The person on the press is making the stack. She lays a form on top of a rack. She lays a cloth in the form, fills the form with pumice, folds the cloth, lays the rack on top, and repeats the process 13 times. When the stack is finished, it goes under the hydraulic press and gets squeezed to about 2,200 pounds per square inch. Then we take down the stack, empty the dry pumice, and pump the juice into a tank and start all over again.
I would say if there's one thing I've learned in the past 21 years of doing apple harvest, it's that I'm never surprised when something breaks. Something always breaks. Over the years, I've become more prepared for this, stocking more parts, backup motors and belts, gaskets on hand, phone numbers of suppliers in my contacts. No matter how prepared you try to be, though, you can never fully anticipate what crises will pop up during harvest. Sometimes you get lucky, like this year. The leather seal on the hydraulic ram on a rack and cloth press gave out, literally at the end of the last press on our first press session of the season. That kind of luck is unbelievable. It could have given out halfway through the second press on a Saturday morning when you have to lose the pumice and scrape it off the claws for hours and not be up and running until Tuesday at the earliest, except that your press crew won't be back until Thursday. And meanwhile, the apples are not happy sitting around in bins getting overly ripe, and the apples in the orchard you were supposed to be picking are starting to drop. Trust me, I know what that is like. It's happened before. This kind of work is not all romance, and if you don't love fixing things, or at least be able to, farming might not be the right profession for you.
When people ask me what my cider making philosophy is, I say keep things clean, make as little intervention as possible, and let the fruit speak for itself. That's not vague marketing speak, although it almost sounds like it. These things are directly related. We are interested in expressing terroir through our ciders. To us, that means the fruit itself and where and how it was grown, but also the ecology and microbiology of the orchard, the yeasts that are growing on the skins of the fruit. We are not so interested in the microbiology of our cidery, of hoses and press cloths and such. So we clean and clean and clean and clean and clean. We use wild yeast to ferment our juice into cider. Natural fermentations have been vilified and glorified. But at the end of the day, people have been fermenting alcohol with wild yeast for thousands of years, and some of it is terrible, and some of it is the best in the world. We haven't always done it this way. I don't think we were good enough cider makers at the beginning. I think you have to be more attentive and more responsive, more trusting and less reactive. You can't press crappy fruit and expect it to ferment well naturally. You can't just press the juice and shove it in a tank and come back when the airlock stops bubbling. You have to pay attention and observe what's going on and make gentle adjustments. For example, stirring the cider and moving it to a warmer location so you don't have to make heavy handed interventions like adding yeast nutrients.
So now here we are, week by week, filling these tanks and barrels with the different batches that will become our 2020 Pomage ciders. If all goes well, we will pick and press our last apples in early November, and after that, we will catch up on our sleep. It's hard to really put into words the sense of gratitude we have for this harvest. The bounty of the land here is astonishing. To be on this amazing journey of learning how to grow and make cider here in the Finger Lakes. And I think one of the things that's really been on our minds lately is that we are not the first people to be orchardists here, and our deep hope that we will not be the last. And so we want to acknowledge that this farm that provides so much is located on the land of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, specifically the Cayuga Nation.
In 1779, in what amounted to a genocidal land grab, George Washington instructed General Sullivan to mount a campaign against the Haudenosaunee not just killing them, but burning their villages to the ground, destroying their food stores, and cutting down their orchards. 250 years later, 98.8% of all farm owners in New York State are white. For 400 years, our nation has preferenced the success of white people over the well being of people of color. From violently stealing the land of Indian nations to enslaving Africans to the Ku Klux Klan, segregation, Jim Crow, sundown towns, redlining, mass incarceration, and police brutality. It feels wrong to wax poetic about the harvest when so many wrongs go unrighted. I believe that we have a moral imperative to repair this terrible harm, and repair begins with acknowledgement and reparations. Join our family and become a patron of the Northeast Farmers of Color Land Trust. For just $5, you can make a monthly payment to an organization whose mission is to increase the number of farmers of color in the Northeast, some of whom will hopefully grow orchards in the Finger Lakes.
What a year 2020 has been. And yet, from a cider maker's perspective, the growing season has given us some incredible fruit. We still have a long ways to go, but at this point, deep into harvest, we are already daydreaming about showing you these ciders just about a year from now.
Cider Week Finger Lakes is brought to you by the New York Cider Association and is made possible by the generous support of our sponsors.